Hi, my name is Iris, and I directed Romeo and Juliet for Accidental Shakespeare Company. We are about to end our first release of all the episodes. We are releasing episode 5 for Act 5 this coming Saturday at 7:30 over our YouTube channel, and we will post the unlisted link to that on our Facebook page and we are called Accidental Shakespeare Company on Facebook. So please find us in Facebook where you can access the link to see the episode. We also have a playlist posted of the first 4 episodes on our Facebook pinned to the top of the page. So if you've not yet seen the first 4 episodes, please check those out to see them and then see episode 5. In today's video, which is kind of our last little podcast-esque fireside chat marketing video where I talk about the different elements of the production, I would love to just give a big shout out to the cast. This cast, as I've already mentioned, are each amazing actors and each brought just so many specific choices to their characters. Everyone I cast, in my opinion, was still the ideal actor for that role and really made this a really great production and a really great process. Creating a show over Zoom was very different from creating one over on stage, and I think the actors really adapted to that medium really well. One example is just the rehearsal process. Usually actors have like 6 or more weeks to fully get into character and work on their scenes and just do all of that preparation and all that rehearsal. A theater show usually has 6 weeks of rehearsal that includes chances to really work on each scene several times and then build up to a final week of just runs of the whole production. Whereas because this was film and we were basically filming each scene separately and sending it off to Evelyn to edit, we didn't quite do that. We needed to be more efficient with our time, and this process was still actually 6 weeks to rehearse, but we rehearsed each scene for about 1 or 2 hours on any given rehearsal night. And then a couple days later, we would film that same scene with like full tech and like full filming conditions. And we do a few takes over usually just an hour to 90 minutes. So for somebody who's typically a stage actor, going from having like those full 6 weeks to like explore one's character and then going down to like having 1 rehearsal day and 1 filming day where your performance lives forever after that filming day, that I imagine was kind of difficult, and each actor handled that really well. I appreciate as a director how each actor came in having like fully done their homework with the text and had also definitely made specific character choices about each scene and monologue. I also just find that like this cast brought really excellent chemistry with each other, even though many of them have not yet met in person. For instance, Sierra and Melody, who play our Romeo and Juliet, as far as I know, they've actually never met in person. And they just had so much chemistry as R and J, and their specific scene work together and like the acting choices that they made really conveyed the fact that the two of them were falling in love with each other and had that very like true bond with each other, despite the fact that as actors, as real people, they had never met. And like, that was huge and beautiful. Also just the bonds between like the nurse and Juliet. Like, I don't know if Melody and Lauren have ever met in person. They didn't rehearse in person. They very clearly have that bond. And the relationship, like the friendship between Romeo, Benvolio, and Mercutio. I know AC and Elizabeth know each other in real life, and Sierra had met with them to do the fight scenes choreographed by Polly, but that rehearsal was all over Zoom, and you can still see like that banter. They're familiar with each other as though they've been friends in person for years, and they really have that really excellent friend chemistry despite rehearsing over screens. And so I think that so much of that is due to just the amazing preparation work that they all did, and also just how they each put like their full selves and were fully present in their roles. Also for this production, many actors doubled characters, which is usually not easy in any situation, but like the limitations of Zoom presented additional challenges in doubling, which the actors handled really well. Like Lauren Miller made such beautiful different choices as the prince and the nurse. Like as the nurse, she made such great choices with the comedy of how the nurse is behaving, as well as just like those deeper moments of sorrow and sadness with Juliet as shit starts to hit the fan in acts 3 and 4. And for her creating such a very specific character as the nurse with like very specific costuming, she's going with, I think, kind of like slightly higher class Miss Frizzle vibes as the nurse, as well as finding like spots in her own home for that to contrast with the prince. That was awesome. And then seeing just her total shift as the prince, seeing how as the prince, she was this very like kind of commanding presence as basically like the mayor of Verona or Chicago or the Verona-esque Chicago that we're in. All her choices changed, like her movement, her voice, her characterization, like all of that was different as the prince. And those were all choices that she made. And like her costuming as well was very like buttoned up, the hair pulled back, very like kind of Margaret Thatcher meets Hillary Clinton, and how she specifically filmed that in like a different spot in her own home and kind of like a more stately, like a set of like double doors for a living room kind of space. And how there were some nights where she'd have rehearsals as like the prince and the nurse in the same rehearsal, and she was able to just like shift super duper beautifully. Also, Elizabeth Quilter played both Mercutio and Paris. And again, similarly, as Mercutio, Elizabeth brought so much like comic timing and so much like realism and vulnerability to the heightened comedy at the same time, which is really hard, but also really necessary for Mercutio. And Elizabeth just did that super well. And just a ton of like really cool little choices they made, like the guitar in that one scene in the middle of Act 2, and just creating the Queen Mab video, which they were not like told to do on their own. They decided to fully direct, edit, and also animate a video of the Queen Mab speech, which we added in the middle of Act 1 when Elizabeth delivers the Queen Mab speech. So, and we've also used, with their permission, animations from that video as a recurring visual motif throughout the movie. So Elizabeth really went above and beyond in just the characterization of Mercutio and creating that, as well as just the contrast with Paris, because Paris is very he's not Mercutio. He's very like buttoned up, reserved, plays by the rules. And it's also easy to play Paris as kind of like someone who's no good and somebody who's like just very caddish, who doesn't really care about Juliet. But Elizabeth also really found the bits of Paris that were just very human. And Paris, if you look at the text, actually liked Juliet. And Elizabeth was able to find that beautifully and to also just play the innocence and vulnerability of Paris. And I could go on and on, especially about like every single character. Like even with any of the other doubling, the fact that like Eric Schiller, he went from playing Lord Capulet for most of the film, and then also made totally different choices as Friar John at the end, and Victoria Montalbano, who was a beautiful and like stately and serious Lady Montague, and also then as the apothecary, which was a totally different set of choices. And we also had a great conversation of like what type of person would be the equivalent of the apothecary in 2020. And yeah, so I really appreciate each and every cast member. Just to like name everyone else, like Terry, who played Lady Capulet, AC, who played Benvolio, and just really brought out the peaceful, the peaceful, vulnerable sides of Benvolio. And the fact that we actually combined Benvolio and Balthazar, because like, and just made both of those characters Benvolio for AC, because both of those characters never really overlap, and Balthazar's main function is to deliver the messages to Romeo at the very end. And so we figured, why not just make them the same person? Because like they're actually fulfilling similar functions in their different parts of the play. And I think it's actually a lot more poignant to have Romeo say his last goodbye in the crypt to his good friend and cousin Benvolio, instead of making that moment with the character as like Balthazar, who is usually a servant in the Montague family. So I like how we kind of combined both roles and just made AC Benvolio throughout. And so that gives that like final goodbye moments where they do their like friendship peace sign, just a lot more poignant at the end. So AC also totally did some doubling, even though their role was named Benvolio throughout. And then let's see, who else haven't I named? Polly Cooney, they played Tybalt. And as I mentioned in our video about the production team, they also choreographed the fight scenes and also just totally led the process of filming those at the park and created kind of the full shot list of the camera angles and everything and specifically how to film each scene. So Polly Cooney is another like above and beyond MVP of this show. And also Julia Kessler, she played Friar Lawrence, and she's basically like, I think, an ideal Friar Lawrence for this production and also like for life. And she stepped into this play a little bit after many of the other cast members did, since the actor who we had hired to play Friar Lawrence when this was originally going to be a stage production had to drop out and could not do the digital version. And so Julia was in the company at the time, or actually, yeah, she's in the company still. Yeah, we're still in the company. Yeah, she was in the company, and she is the company text coach. And I was just talking to her about it, and she just volunteered to play Friar Lawrence because she really wanted to play Friar Lawrence. And she ended up being a great Friar Lawrence. So I'm really happy that she stepped in on short notice and also just made so many great choices as Friar Lawrence. And I love how she specifically brought in the warmth and the comfortingness of Friar Lawrence. That was really great. And those are traits of Friar Lawrence that like I think are necessary in the character. And Julia just like very naturally brought in that warmth, which was so great. So let's see, I think I've named everyone. I could continue going on to sing everybody's praises. But yeah, like in general, I really liked working on this show with this group of actors. I think that the actors themselves and the care and thoughtfulness that they put into their characters really, oh, and also Anjali, she stepped in as kind of at the last minute to play Abram as a cameo. And Abram has the iconic like bite your thumb at me lines, and they are the Montague who is coming towards the Capulets, because Samson and Gregory are Capulets. And so Anjali stepped in at the last minute for that first scene to play Abram, and Anjali's also a company member. So it was really great that like Anjali and Julia, who were founding company members, got to be in this show. And so yeah, so I am really glad that Anjali got a role as well, and Anjali played Abram. So yeah, this cast for me really made the show and made the experience. So please do check out the rest of the show. We are airing episode 5 this Saturday, and I am just so proud of this cast, and I'm glad that this process went smoothly. They all enjoyed the process, and they all just brought so much to their roles. And yeah, and I hope you get to see and enjoy Romeo and Juliet. So I'll say goodbye for now. Have an awesome rest of your day, because you are awesome. Bye.